Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I'm looking at Prime #1. So I was going to make this part of my exploration of the 1993 top sellers. I came to find out this is not a top seller. At least it's not in the top 300 of the year. It was about the 60th top seller of the month it came out, which, a lot of comics were coming out, so I guess that's pretty good, but it still did not crack the top 300 of the year. That kind of surprised me because I remember Ultraverse being a pretty big deal. It was promoted heavily in Wizard Magazine and other trade magazines at the time. And in fact, we'll see in here in a minute, this actually has a cross promotion with Wizard. So Ultraverse it had a cartoon and had, I don't remember how many titles launched exactly. This is one of the earliest ones. And I was down for this. This was like another new universe. Image was going on. Valiant was going on. A lot of like new things were happening in comics. And so this was like a chance to get in on the ground floor or something. Prime was probably one of the better titles of the Ultraverse. The other ones, some are good, like Barry Windsor Smith's Rune. I like Steve Gerber's Sludge a good bit. But some of the other ones they ended up being kind of bland, kind of generic. But Prime was pretty good, and it's essentially a take on the Captain Marvel Shazam concept. It's different. It's similar, but it's different, and I'll get into that in a second. So we got Prime Time. Lynn Strzewiecki and Jared Jones, writers. Norm Brayfogle, artist. Tim Eldred, letterer. Paul Mounts, color design. Chris Ulm, editor. One thing Ultraverse was known for was the coloring. They were kind of like an early adopter of the digital coloring, and they did it a little better than like a lot of what Image guys were playing around with. In fact, they did it so well that Marvel would eventually buy Malibu, which this is a Malibu book, would buy Malibu pretty much just to get that in-house coloring that they had. Norm Brayfogle, most people would know him for doing Batman. I'm assuming he probably had some creator-owned stake in this because this was that time, 1993, when this new stuff, a lot of times the creators were given a little piece of the pie to entice them to even do this kind of stuff. So the issue starts out pretty interesting. You've got this big, jacked up, roided out looking super guy, and he's attacking a gym school teacher. And he's threatening him, and you can tell by his dialogue there's a maturity level missing. And he's saying, like, I know what you did to those girls. Of course, this guy's denying it. He just basically slows him around, and now it's being narrated actually by this guy. So he's going to live through it. And he's kind of telling what happened, at least from his side. And he's saying, like, I saw you touching those girls in 5th period. It's like, how did he see that? So that's tipping you off already that this is not a full-grown man that's running this body. As he takes out this guy, this is pretty brutal. He breaks his arm at the elbow, just ripping the skin and everything. I mean, that tells you this is a step above the violence level of something like a Marvel book was doing at the time. That's a pretty interesting panel here. So it's like after he beats this guy down and he tells these girls, you don't have to be afraid of me. I was here to save you. But it's almost Hulk-like. And you actually have kind of the panel going up here. So it's all behind it. This particular copy had a weird roll in the pages were being put together, apparently. You don't have to be scared of me. And you got the girl looking terrified. Now we cut to where the guy was narrating it. And he's finishing up the story. He's being interrogated by somebody you can't tell who it is, and some other voice is like, "Why did you let him go? He's, obviously, molesting these girls." And they're like, "Oh, well, we were also bombarding him with radiation where he'll have no sexual urges again." And then we have another guy come in, and he starts telling his encounter with this character Prime, and he's very stereotypical New Jack City Wesley Snipes style drug dealer of the 90s, obviously running like a crack house. They don't specifically say crack, they just say drugs. Prime goes in, starts taking them all out. They shoot at him, and like this is, it says some of them bounce off, but some of them go in. And it's like this fleshy colored ooze coming out of him. It's not blood. And it's, that's pretty gross. So now you're getting another like interesting, like, so what's going on with this character? He's obviously not totally invulnerable. They go in, but it doesn't really seem to hurt him. And he even seems surprised. It's like the look on his face is surprised. It's a pretty good, flipping of the panel here too. You've got like from behind Prime, under his legs, and then looking the other way. And then this panel being like the splashy ooze. I like the layout of that. A little different. He goes on to take out the drug dealers, and the drug lord, I guess you'd call him. He actually he's like, I got a piece of something, a piece of the goo that came off of him in this file. He talks about, he's like, I thought I might try to smoke it or something. And I thought when he first said that, he would say like, maybe it'll give me superpowers, but he was like, it'll be an interesting high. And anyway, it would have been funny if he did try to smoke it and he got superpowers or something. That would have been an interesting twist. But he also says that anytime that his minions have to take somebody out, they bring him a piece of them as like a souvenir, and he keeps it, which is pretty gross. So then all of a sudden these straps come around. He's like, hey, let me out of here. And these interrogators electrocute him because he's just a lowly, dirty drug dealer. And they say that isn't really protocol, but this guy has been given some leeway to, take extreme measures if he has to. Interesting lighting on this. The way it's like, is he still being electrocuted over there? Why is it blue right there? It's kind of different. I don't remember this title. From Steve Englehart. I do remember Hard Case, and I felt Hard Case was kind of vanilla at the time. I didn't really care for it. In fact, we're going to talk about Hard Case for a second. Now we get into this newscast, which lasts too many pages and is more or less just like updating you with all the characters going on in the Ultraverse. I found this stuff pretty distracting from the issue, and like kind of a slog to get through. It goes through Hard Case. It goes through this prototype guy. Got a Jim Lee cover for Ultraverse Zero. So this is where I was talking about. They have this Ultraverse Zero book coming out, and one of the coupons you had to get was in Wizard number 23, and Malibu Sun. So you had to get it out of two of the launch titles, and then a preview magazine, and then just a Wizard magazine. So that was a pretty bad gimmick. I think when they made fans start having to do stuff like this to get these books, that was really prevalent more like in 93. And I think that's where we start seeing the decline of like fans in the 90s, not wanting to put up with that kind of stuff. They were there for like multiple covers of X-Men, but when this stuff started happening, after the first 2 times or so that they did something like that, it was like, nope, I'm done. And then of course Image ruined it because they had an Image Zero that didn't come out for like 10 years after. I don't even know if they even like fulfilled the coupons that people, if they cut them out and sent them in. Just more news stuff. Then it gets back to Prime finally, and it mentions him going somewhere in South America, and these guys are watching it, the people who were interrogating before, and now they decide that's why they were even watching the news to see if there's anything about Prime. They're like, oh no, now he's been exposed. The world knows about him. Cut back over to where he's going to help. He's going to help these like Red Cross guys bring in some food and supplies, and there's some terrorists preventing him from doing it. And he's like, I'll just go take them out. And these are some great pages by Breyfogle. Get a lot of action, smashing tanks, bullets flying off of him. He gets a grenade, and the grenade blows up, and he's like, but he's a little melty. Pretty good panel here with the silhouette, just things hitting in there. I like this explosion in the middle of this page with the bomb going off. Kind of brings your eye to the middle. That's a pretty good, both of these are pretty good pages here. So this is the interesting part. If you take that news stuff out, this is like a pretty interesting issue. After he's done taking them out, he kind of looks at himself and notices he's leaking all over. And he's like, oh God, I got to get out of here. So the UN people start moving in with their supplies, like, hey, we just wanted to thank you, but he just takes off. See him like struggling to get back to wherever he's going, to home, and we don't really know anything about him yet as far as his home. He gets there, and you got just two like really crazy pages happening here. He's like melting in the sun setting, and he is just melting. He's just like he can't get out. So the prime body is melting, and he busts out. This other figure busts out, and it's basically a kid. It's kind of hard to tell that he's a kid. There he looks like a kid. There he doesn't look so much like a kid. There he doesn't look so much like a kid. There he doesn't look so much like a kid. And that's the end of the first issue. But that's why I was saying this is like a play on Captain Marvel, because you do have a kid who has this like superpower, or he can turn into this like superpowered adult. But in this case, he's definitely still got the mind. He's being controlled by the mind of the kid. That's why when he was attacking the gym teacher, he was like, I saw you in 5th period. And, just some of the things he says, or you can tell the maturity level isn't there, say like a Superman or a Batman or some character like that. Of course, it doesn't dive too much into that in this issue, but overall, I think if this had shown him looking a little bit more like a kid, I think that would have been a stronger finish. But still, I think it was interesting to have, like, you see this body melting, the super body melting, and he comes out. This like smaller figure comes out of it. I still think that's a pretty good cliffhanger for the first issue, and it made me get the second issue. I probably picked up this book for, I don't know, maybe the first like 6 or 7 issues. I would say I stuck with it for a little while. I don't remember much more going forward. And I just picked this one up recently out of a dollar bin and just wanted to kind of see it again. I don't know that I will pick up the rest of them. I might. It's not going to be a priority. I do have some other Prime issues, like a Prime Hulk book. But it tried. It tried to do something new. But the Ultraverse ultimately was buried by Image and Valiant. And, like I said, it didn't crack the top 300 of the year. So that just tells you how much stuff was coming out when something like this that had a cartoon show and everything else going for it, tie-ins with Wizard, still couldn't crack the top 300. And that's just 1993 in a nutshell. So check out Prime if you get a chance. And until next time, read your comics.